Welcome to Wednesday and another edition of Live and Unscripted with Jen Saunders, your host. Today we have Brandon Gosselin as our guest, but we'll introduce him in just a minute. It's June 14th, and oh my gosh, can you believe we're like halfway through this year? We're almost to the longest day of the year. And for those of you who live in the Idaho Falls, Pocatello, Rexburg, Blackfoot surrounding areas, the Righteous Rebels is having a longest day of the year summer solstice party on the 21st. So next Wednesday, you can go to the Righteous Rebels Facebook group or to my personal page, Jennifer Store Saunders, and to receive those invites and to click the button that will give you the RSVP and the instructions of what you'll want to bring and how to be prepared. So really looking forward to the longest day of the year and just being in great company, energy of the sun, energy of the river, energy of the fire. We're going to have air. We're going to have all the elements. So the only thing we're missing currently is you. So head on over. If you haven't already, become a member of the Righteous Rebels Facebook group over on Facebook. Head on over there, click the join button. You got to make the sound bing, and then we'll let you in. There's lots of good stuff over there. That's where we give most of our announcements of our upcoming events and fun things and where community starts to happen. And we would love to have you be a part of what we do. So let's see, any other fun announcements? We still have River Trip coming up in August. We have spaces, and we also have a really cool surprise that we just found out about last week that we would like to offer you. Again, reach out, and it might have something to do with a discount that we were just given privilege to offer to you. So we would love to give you information on that as well. We just did an interview with Carol from the Paisley Project. We're going to introduce more of the Paisley Project as we move forward in the coming weeks. They went on the river trip last year. Carol shared her experience. And if you are a female widow and just are unsure of how to move forward in your world and who to connect with, and you just all the things that come with that, I don't understand that because it's not my situation. I have the Paisley Project for you. And I loved our interview with Carol and the things that she shared and the adventures that they're doing for you. And so watch for those announcements and introduction to the Paisley Project and all the amazing things that they are doing as well. Let's see. I think that's all by way of announcements for now. So let's just start. For those of you who are new, we always start with a little bit of breathing as an opportunity to just let go of everything that's happened in the day already and to settle into the present moment while letting go of all the other stuff that's on your planner, your schedule, or you think is going to happen in the day, and just really be in the space of here and now. Live and Unscripted is about letting inspiration be the guide. And so we invite you to be present with us and just lend to that energy so that the conversation goes in all the amazing places that intuition and inspiration leads. So let's see. Let's just do simple box breathing today, where we're just going to breathe in through our noses for I always say 4 or 5 count. Do the count that works for you, that really fills up your lungs all the way down, like you're filling up a balloon all the way down into your pelvis. You're going to breathe in through your nose. You're going to hold that inhale for the same amount of time. You're going to release it through your mouth for the same amount of time. And then you're going to hold that exhale for the same amount of time. Today, as you do that, I'm going to invite you to just breathe in. Breathe in just whatever feels yummy and peaceful and calm or exciting for you. And as you breathe out, to just let go of any heavier or dense energies that got you feeling down or a little bit low, and just letting that stuff go out of your system as you're breathing. So breathing in the higher energies that are like going to just raise you up, and letting go of the lower, denser energy. So as you do this, I'm going to invite you to do it with a downward gaze or closed eyes, whichever is most comfortable for you. I'll do this first set with you, and then let's do 3 sets on our own today. And then just remember that this is something that you can do every day, many times a day. It doesn't take long to just get rid of crunchiness and come into a present moment where then you make better decisions. You bring your heart rate into coherence. You become more connected with you. You slow your brain down and you can just go, now I feel like I can make good decisions, or just be connected with the people who are in front of you. So with that, let's take that downward gaze or closed eyes, taking that first breath in through your nose, holding that, releasing it through your mouth, letting those denser energies go, holding the exhale, and then just repeat for 3 cycles on your own. All right, go ahead and finish up the cycle that you're in. And when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes. And I just invite you to notice what took place in like 30 seconds. What took place in your body? What did you experience in your mind? Did you experience anything in your body? When I do it, I always just feel this sense of just whoosh, calm. I can feel my feet in my sandals. I can feel the sleeve on my skin. I can like actually sense the movement of my body as it breathes. But what I love is just this space of it just brings me into calmness, because when I get on here, I'm excited, like I'm ready to go. And it's nice just to take that breath and get into a space where then I can bring our guest on and get into coherence with them and just start this really yummy exchange of energy, which then we invite you to be a part of as well. And that's where the magic happens. So remember, you can do this often, and I encourage you to do so. If you experience something really cool or just something new, I would love to hear about that. Feel free to drop it in the comments and let us celebrate. Let us celebrate with you. With that, I'm going to bring on our guest. This is another dude, another amazing dude who I met in India. India brought some really cool things and unexpected things, and this guy is one of them. Affectionately known as, well, his name's Brandon Gosselin, affectionately known as Guru B. And this guy has a presence, and it's not just because he's tall. Like, this guy's tall. He makes me look like nothing. Brandon, I think I go up to your belly button. Okay, maybe your chest, but I'm going to bring you on. So Brandon was one of our speakers over in India, and I love the presence that he brought. I mean, look, he's got this handsome face and beautiful smile, and he just has a presence about him that it really drew me in. And while he was there, he brought his cute wife, Maggie, and I was just drawn to their energy and their presence. And then the more I learn about them, the more I'm like, and I understand now why. Brandon has a big heart and a desire to make change and create change in the world and help other people become their best and to stand in their own leadership. I'm not sure what's going on over here. Just a second. So he's a speaker. He's a teacher. He's still in school. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about that when we get there. And he's got big dreams and he's working on big things, and we'll get to that too. So Brandon,
Yeah, absolutely.
tell
Thanks
us
for
a
having me
little bit
on,
more.
Jen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's my pleasure, man.
I'm a simple guy, you know. I just try to focus on serving others and just trying to be good, you know. There's a lot of things in this world that aren't the best, and if we just
Right.
focus more on ourselves and just trying to be good, we can see some great things that come out of that. So that for me, I'm just a simple guy who's just trying to be good, you know.
I love it. Okay, so you ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
The one starting question
I'm ready.
is, what were you like as a kid, and what did
Hmm.
you want to be when you grew up?
Oh yeah, I love that question. So one of my favorite memories is one of my birthdays. We were at this pizza place where I grew up, and or near where I grew up, and it was funny because we have a video recording of this. And it's my birthday, and there's family and friends there. I'm about 5 years old, and they get the camera, they look at me, and they go, "Hey Brandon, how old are you? I look up at him, I squat down, put my hands in my pants and say, I'm stupid. So I was just one of those kids. You never knew what was coming next. I
Right?
like to keep people on their toes. My parents said that they never spanked me, so that was good. I learned to balance it as well. But I was just full of learning. I love being able to go outside and go explore. That's one of the things I wish I would see more people do these days. Just go outside and explore, have adventures. Go on river trips like you're
I would
hosting,
say,
just to reconnect.
come hang out
It's
with
just
us.
absolutely, it's just the power of being able to do that is just awesome. So I love to explore as a child, and I always wanted to be as I grew up and got more smarter, of course. I I wanted to be a chef. I just
Really?
love food. I did. I've always wanted to be a chef. Never became. I feel like I'm the chef for Margaret. Margaret, my wife. Sorry, there's a little noise behind me. My
That's
father-in-law's
okay.
coffee
That's
shop.
life.
Um, but yeah, chef is what I wanted to do. I always wanted to cook. And I cook now. I'm not the best cook, but I love cooking. So that's what I wanted to be, and uh, didn't didn't pursue too much after that though.
So, what was it about cooking that made you want to be a chef when, as a little guy?
Yeah.
I have nephews
Oh.
and
Mhm.
three nephews from my sister, and um, two of them, I don't know about the third. Two of them I know love to cook and do the things, and I love it when little boys like have that dream and they start
Yeah.
experimenting and exploring. So, what was it for you that was
Well,
exciting? Or like, I want to be a chef.
I think there's two factors that go into this. One, I was a fat kid. Boy,
Okay,
was I was a fat. I mean, you look at me, 12 years old. I was pushing 220.
were you still tall?
I was on the taller side of my age group. I mean, I was a big plump
Okay,
boy. It's like if you ever get like a potato sack, you just keep pushing in potatoes and you keep pushing in potatoes. I was a potato sack, so I just
okay.
love food, right? And then you couple that with my mom. I love her to death. She's the most incredible, angelic woman you could ever meet, right? But she does not know how to cook. She can cook breakfast all day, but anything else, so I think it's coupled with being a fat kid and just wanting to have different choices of food. I just think that kind of again, my mom's absolute best, so
Yeah.
don't come after me there. But no, I think those two things are what kind of made it come together.
And so how long did you have this thought of like I want to be a chef? And did you experiment with it? Did you have opportunities to experiment things that hung out there and then just kind of
I think it was
fizzed out?
inspired from my love to eat. I think as simple as nothing too inspirational behind it. Sadly, I just love food. Yeah.
That's do you still love food?
I do. I love it.
I
Tonight,
love
my wife and I were having tonight we're having a dinner, and I'm cooking out for us. So we're gonna have grilled steaks and grilled asparagus and grilled mushrooms, and she won't eat the mushrooms or asparagus, but she'll eat the steak. But so we're cooking that up. So like I'll cook. So I definitely love engaging in it from time to time.
that's awesome. So did you ever like take any classes or things that kind of inspire or inform your cooking now, or is it just like your own experimentation?
I like to experiment. I watched my grandma. She's passed recently, but whenever we were younger, we'd go to her house, and she was a French woman, and she owned a couple of restaurants. And whenever she was younger, so she would, I don't know how she would make half the stuff she would do. So she was always experimenting. She never followed a recipe. She was like, "Ah, I'll put this in. Yeah, put some of that in there." Strong French woman presence. So you can never be in her kitchen when she's cooking, or you're gonna get the swatting. But no, I think I kind of watched her just take the cooking the field and just do what she wanted to be her own creative person. And you can go look at a recipe, kind of use this for guidance, but ultimately you're doing your own thing.
That's cool. So how did that in or your grandma's influence of like not using a recipe and just creating these cool things? How do you think that influenced you? And not even necessarily by way of food or making food,
Mhm.
but how do you think that influenced you as you were growing up and how you make decisions or how you do things now?
Yeah, I think it. Now that I think of it, it could be good. A thought for life, right? Because you have all these individuals who prescribe exactly how you should live your life. You should do X, Y, Z in order to become successful. You should go to 4-year college. You should come in $100,000 worth of debt. Go get the house. Go get the family. In reality, like, you could use those as guidelines, right? But in the day, you got to make your own dessert. You got to make your own gumbo. You got to make your own spaghetti. Do whatever you want. You can go look at these recipes, these ways to live your life. Ultimately, do your own thing, because that's what I found. Like, now that I'm looking at it, reflect, like, that's what I found. Where I found my most success is, okay, I see things that exist in the world, and I'll use them for guidance. But ultimately, like, I'm going off my own intuition, to really go and identify what's going to work for me. Because if I'm trying to work for other people, if I'm trying to work to please other people, like, that's not going to be sustainable at the end of the day. So I think just trying to find my own recipe and just add a little dash here, a little bit, a cup of this here. Even though if it calls for 3 cups, I'm going to put a whole gallon because I like that, I'm just trying to just realize that your life is not, you have to live it a certain way. Live it your own, and feel free to embrace the thought of, hey, I can live life the way I want to live it. And I don't have to be told to do something a certain way in order to be successful in life. And that's, I think, the generations these days that are coming up, Generation Z and Alpha, I think that's a message that they need to hear more and more, is one, you can live your own life, and you can find inspiration in other people's lives. You don't have to do exactly what everyone's trying to tell you exactly what to do. And that one, like, it's okay to fail. Yeah, you're going to create a cake that's going to be flat and nasty and gross. You shouldn't have put that pineapple in there, right? But it's
Or a
okay
gallon
to
of it.
fail. Yeah, or a gallon of it, exactly. It is okay to fail, and just go. Okay, use that experience to build on your next experience, for your next cooking endeavor or your next career, or whatever it may be. So I really like the analogy you tried to put together there, Jen. You're a smart gal. You're a smart gal.
Thank you. Inspiration. Let inspiration be the guide.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that that's the piece that you're bringing up, because I know for me, that's something that I bump into a lot. Like, I was a kid who followed the rules, wore the halo, straight and narrow path. I didn't like making people upset. I followed the recipes. I did the things, and as I got old, I know, stop with that look. As I got older, I was like, wait a second, like, I could feel that push and
Yeah.
that pull of, like, wait, there's something more to me than all of these things that I've been given and handed down, and maybe that's not my belief, or that's actually not my voice. And I started running into people who didn't use recipes, and I was like, wait, what you good. But I was like, wait a minute, they're making amazing things. And it started to, like, create that shifting and that movement, and until we have what we have today, which is Righteous Rebels, which is doing the
Yeah.
very thing you're talking about, is saying, we're not here to tell you how to do it. We're here to give you some guidelines and say, pick and choose what works for you, like, legitimately works for you. And if you like a gallon of something, then use it. See if it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. If it doesn't, keep going.
So in your experimentation that way, like, what are some do you mind sharing some things, like, that, like, were really big flops, and how you moved through that? And then maybe on the flip side, some things that are like, dang, that actually turned out really good. I would repeat that, or I would try that again, or that you felt like, oh, you could puff your chest out a little bit and be like, yeah, I
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah. I'm a little hard-headed sometimes, and I like to do things my own way. And early on, I really fell to that, and I've learned as I get older to be a little bit wiser in it. And that's the idea of wisdom, right? Wisdom, from what I've been told, is learning from other people's mistakes, so you don't have to make them yourself. Well, when I first heard that quote, I really wanted to test that out, and I've like you said, flopped.
We've lost him. We're talking about flops. So until we see him again, and if you happen to be watching, like, what are some things in your world, Brandon? I don't know if you can hear me. Just keep trying to come back on. Let me do one thing here. I'm going to hide him off the screen. Will, when I see his cute mug again, we'll bring him back in the screen. So Brandon's talking about watching his grandma, how he wanted to be a chef when he grew up, and then watching his grandma make all the amazing things that she made without recipes and such. There he is. All right, we're not gonna, Brandon, I'm bringing you back on. So for those of you who missed it, we're just, I know, hello, welcome back. This is like, oh, panic moment. And I'm like, no, go with the flow. No recipe here. We're live and unscripted.
That's right.
So Brandon's about to tell us, we're talking about some of the flops that happen, and then we'll talk about some of the great things that he's created as well.
Absolutely. It's like one of the things that's kind of, like you said, you mentioned that I was in school before I started the schooling that I'm doing now. I actually was going to get a JD, Juris Doctorate, because that's something my dad always wanted. I never told you this.
I know what that is.
Yeah, Juris Doctorate. So you can become a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, pretty much.
Okay.
So I was going to school for that. I'm like, I'm going to try it out. Jen.
I can't even see you doing that.
I failed out in a semester. I understand, like, I've never failed before in classes. Like, school's my thing. School's my thing. I guess I got summa cum laude, graduate with honors, an MBA, like all that stuff. And I go to Juris Doctorate, and I realized I wasn't passionate about it. I realized that, like, sure, I can do the time and the studies to get the good grades, but like at the end of the day, my passion just wasn't in it. So like you can see that in my results. Like I ended up like, man, I don't want to do this work. That's not interesting enough. I saw the good practical applications that could come from it. Be able to say, oh, I got JD, all that good stuff. But for me, it was just my passion wasn't aligned, and it wasn't truly aligned with where I wanted to go in life. And what ended up happening is like I would say the greater conscious kind of led me into say, hey, this isn't where we want you to go. And for me, that's God saying, whoever it may be for anyone else watching, right, is saying, hey, you don't really need to be there, right? So what happened was failed, and that's pretty funny, because that's the first time I ever experienced that in academics.
So that's the question that's like coming to my mind right here is, so from a guy who's like, dude, school was my thing. I was up here in school, and then all of a sudden you're like flat on your face. It sounds like, how does that affect? How did that affect you, and maybe your confidence, or like how did it affect you, and how do you pick yourself up from that place without believing that that's like how you're going to move forward? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I appreciate you asking that, because there's a couple of things I'd like to share. Like one is, the more you practice something, right, the better you get at it, right? You build the habits, you build the narrow pathways, you become, comfortable with it. Well, for me, one of the things that I've wanted to get comfortable for as soon as I graduated high school was failure, right? Because, failure is inevitable, and the more you get comfortable with it, the less it's going to affect you. Because I've had times in my life where I failed, multiple businesses at once. I failed in a relationship I was in, and I failed a nonprofit, all within the span of 3 months, right? And that failure set.
Did you just say 3 months?
Yeah, all that happened in 3 months.
I totally thought you were going to say 3 years. Like, holy
shit. I wish it was. No, it was like bam, 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 bam. Like here comes like Babe Ruth with a bat hitting me. Yeah. And what happened was, after that all happened, I went into 6 months of depression.
Okay.
Where I laid in bed the entire time, only to get up to use the restroom and to get food. That's the only time I got up. So that failure that I experienced, I think that was in 2018. How
old were you at the time?
I was 2018. I just graduated. So I was, I think, like 22-ish. Right around there.
So 22? You're a baby. You're still a baby. Like you're a baby
23
adult,
maybe.
like
maybe.
Experiencing all these things.
Baby adult.
Like that still feels like such an impressionable time of like when you're trying to like just think you're so big and so cool, and you got the world in your hands, and then all of a sudden you're like, and that's really big.
It was definitely an experience, and I did not want to ignore the emotions. I wanted to recognize them and understand them. So I think hindsight, I spent too much time in those emotions, but ultimately Now I understand where I was, what brought those emotions, and more importantly, I understood how to make sure those emotions were in check and how to properly manage them because they're always going to come and go. It's emotions are always going to come and go, but how
Right.
to manage them appropriately is kind of what I learned to do. So after that 6 months, what I really understood is how to appropriately have my emotions and my endeavors separate. Right? I can have guardrails set up, and I say guardrails because a lot of people say put up your boundaries. Right? We hear boundaries all the time. Right? Put up your boundaries for relationships. Put boundaries. So like when you think of boundaries subconsciously, right, your mind goes to stepping on an out of bounds line. Right? It's something you can easily do, and if you do like, oh, out of bounds, nothing too big. So instead of saying boundaries, one of my friends taught me to say the word guardrail because when you think of guardrail, you think of driving on a mountain on the side of a cliff, and the only thing holding you from the side of that mountain is that guardrail. So you respect guardrails more. So the guardrails I learned to put up for my emotions was incredible after those 6 months. So when I was referring to the Juris Doctorate, where I absolutely failed, and one of the things I was so great at academics, I now absolutely failed at because previously I learned how to manage, set those appropriate guardrails from my previous failures and that 6 months of depression. I was able to appropriately have them to where I was like, oh crap, on to the next thing. So it was just that experience of being comfortable with failing and understanding how to put up appropriate guardrails with my emotions and how I conduct myself is what allowed the Juris Doctorate not to take as much of effect as if you would have seen like the paper version of me. You're like, wow, why did that not affect him more?
Right. Okay. So as you're talking, you made a statement about um, that I would love to give a little bit more attention to, because I think we all come into this of. I think you said I think I may have spent too much time in the emotions, in the depressive emotions, the sadness, the whatever you were feeling. And as you're talking, my mind is like, is it true that you spent too much time in it? I mean, we want to say that, but also I want to, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know there are going to be someone listening who may be in that space, and I want to make sure that they feel seen and heard, that you stay in them as long as you need to stay in them, and because they play a role. They're teaching us things. Um, they're showing us places that maybe need healed, and not to jump out of them too fast. So what would be your thoughts? I mean, none of us want to feel that
Yeah,
crap.
and I think that's where because I think people's intuition is more powerful and accurate than they give it credit for. Um,
Agreed.
because I 100% believe in acknowledging your emotions and feeling your emotions and respecting those emotions. But there's also a point to where you're dwelling in those emotions and it's doing more harm, right? And I think that's where your intuition, to where it may be the smallest voice in you, but it's saying, hey, it's time to move on. Hey, it's time to go to the next phase. It's time to get
So
out of this state.
so
Go ahead.
what was that? What was that for you? Like, what did that look like for you? I mean, obviously, it's going to be different probably for most people, but in your situation, like,
Mhm.
how did you start, like, shifting that and seeing something different and pulling your setting the guardrails?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it was so I spent some time in Tennessee. Those 6 months was half of it. About half of it was in Tennessee, and half of it was in my back of my parents' house. So I did kind of even back at my parents' house, and usually change of scenery helps me, get to a better place. Because I think I've used change of scenery multiple times to get into a better place mentally and emotionally, and it's phenomenal. But this time it just simply didn't because those emotions were just so strong. And it was just to a point to where I just sat there and I was like, hmm, how many people could hear my story and say, hey, I can do that too. I can move on too. How many people can be inspired by the story that I can tell? Right? What happens if I stop and this isn't the rest of my life? How many people are going to miss out on a message or an idea that could have changed their life, but instead I'm choosing to continue to stay here? When I know I can get the resources, when I know I can reach out to people who can help me, when I know I can go to great, incredible retreats like the one you're going to be doing, with Leah, and like be able to transform your mind to a place to get you to where you need to go or you want to go. Sometimes the motivation, like what I love to, one of my mentors, his name's Frank McKinney, he used to build oceanfront property for the ultra wealthy in South Florida. I'm talking $100 million mansions. He's been on Oprah. He's wrote 7 international bestsellers, but he's an incredible guy. He's built 30 self-sufficient villages in the country of Haiti. He calls himself the Robin Hood. He takes from the rich and he gives to the poor. But one of the things he told me whenever I was sitting in his oceanfront treehouse, that was his office.
And I'm like, yeah, take me there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And while we're sitting in this treehouse, you smell the warm, salt ocean air, and you can see the waves, you can hear the waves coming out the window. And he told me there's a difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspirations, right? Where motivation is momentary, it comes and goes, and it lasts about a day or two.
Right.
So there's a lot of times where we expect motivation to always be there, but he said, no, it's designed to come and go, like the oceans come and go, the waves come and go, the tides come and go. And then he said, inspiration is longer, it's temporary. He looked at me, he said, Brandon, you're a ginger. He said, you probably get pretty sunburned. And I said, you're not wrong, Mr. McKinney. I get be burned red if I'm out there for 30 minutes. And he said, well, inspiration is temporary. It lasts a little bit longer. It's about as long as a bad sunburn, 5 to 7 days. So he was saying, motivation is momentary and it comes and goes, and inspiration is temporary and it comes and goes just a little bit longer. But if we're faceted on the idea and the concept that we're always supposed to be motivated, we're always supposed to be inspired, we're never going to get to a place to where we can reach our aspirations. And I asked him, well, that's the question, what's an aspiration? He said, aspirations, he looks at me, he says, they're DNA altering. He said, aspirations are DNA altering because when you identify your aspiration in life, when you're in those moments, laying in bed for 6 months of depression, there's going to be a moment when you are remembered of your aspiration that's going to get you up and keep moving you forward, right? Because that's the thing that I think got me moving again, is because I remember that story of him telling me about the aspirations, and I had my aspiration, and that just reminded me of like, hey, I have this aspiration, and that got me up and moving again. Because the idea of the construct of motivation, inspiration is always going to be there. That can lead you down a very unhealthy path. It's led me down multiple unhealthy paths.
I agree. Okay, so as you're talking, I love how you bring out I actually haven't heard it in quite that way about the motivation being moments. I mean, I know this, and inspiration a little bit longer. I haven't heard it in that way. And then aspirations. What about the person, Brandon, who hasn't had the training like say you and I have, or what would you tell that person who's laying in bed, like really struggling to find that thing that's going to, how do we reach that person? So that they can reach themselves.
I'll give you a perfect example of what I did, right? So whenever I graduated high school, I was in an accident after high school where I was in a 3rd grade mental capacity and hardly had the ability to walk, and I was pronounced dead at the scene. Well, after this accident happened, I was laying in bed at home after the doctors told me, hey, this is your new life. You're essentially going to be like this the rest of your life. And that's a pretty low point. Like, this is before I had any trainings. This was before I had any, mentors. This is before any of those, ideas that we've been sharing so far. And that
this is before your flop at
this was
before the 6-month depression.
This was before, this was before any of that. This was right after high school.
Okay.
Back in 2013. And I was laying in bed, and I'm like, man, I got to get going. I said, there's no way this is my life. Is this all that I have? And this is literally what I did. I looked at my phone, and I scrolled on Facebook and Instagram, and I scrolled on Google, and I was looking for motivational videos. I was looking for inspirational quotes. I was looking for any of those things that could get me moving. And this is where I learned of a thought process that came from Steve Jobs. That was like, I would say, a fork in the road for me. So at this point, doctor's saying, postpone your academic endeavors because probably not going to be too successful in college. They said, this is your new life. Like, this is where you're going to be. You really just got to get used to it right now. And as I was going through Facebook and Instagram and researching things on YouTube, trying to find these motivational, inspirational quotes and movies and, memes, all this other stuff, the thought by Steve Jobs came to me as I was reading it. And it goes, when you realize that the people who are changing our world and the people who are influencing our society every single day are in fact no smarter than you will realize you can do just the same. Jen, I was a little over about probably fifth grade mental capacity at this time. And I remembered my English teacher taught me what you meant. And you was plural, and that you included me. So at that moment, I decided that if I was destined to fail, I was going to fail because I was already at rock bottom. There was nowhere else to go but up. So I took the risk.
What did that look? Well, first of all, I was really hoping that we would get to this part because I haven't really heard much. I know that it happened, that was your experience back then, and that it's life changing. I haven't. This is the first time I'm hearing this as well, which is really awesome that we get to do it right here. And I really appreciate you sharing and sharing your heart. Like I'm feeling really tender and emotional because I feel your heart, and I just want to say thank you. But what were those risks that you started taking that you're like, if I'm going to fail, I'm just going to start fail? And what did that look like? How did that feel when you're like taking these things, and are you failing? Where did you find successes? Like, walk us through that.
Yeah. I just made a decision, like I said, that if I was going to go to college and fail, I was going to fail. So like my expectations was I was going to fail. So I'm like, all right, I already accepted I was going to fail. I was going to keep doing it anyways. The bottom was already there. And I get to school, freshman year, first semester, and I think I'm doing so good. I'm starting to go to the gym more, go to the gym every day, trying to get my physical abilities back up. Because I went from being a 220 stud athlete, one of the top 10 basketball players in the state of Oklahoma for Class B, academic All-State, and now, I was at 1.170 was my lowest. So I'm just trying to rebuild that back. Go ahead.
Quick question. So your physical ability gaining back. So when you're going to college, had your cognitive abilities come back up at that point?
So
were you still kind
I
of
was
depressed?
thinking, so I was thinking that they were getting good because like I was doing things I'd never done before. I was getting study buddies. I was getting I was going to the professors almost every day after class. I was getting tutors. I was doing all the things. I was going to the resource center for people who have traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that at the University of Oklahoma. I was doing all the things right. Halfway through the semester, my first year, I learned I was failing. Right, so this was way before the JD thing, the Juris Doctor thing. So this is the first time I've ever failed in my life. Right? Failed, like not an 80, not 70, not 60, like failed. And that's when I realized, after doing some more research and figuring out what had happened at my accident. So at my accident, a blood vessel had burst in my brain by my basal ganglia.
Okay.
Because I came into contact with concrete that night, riding four-wheelers, and I wasn't wearing a helmet. Going 55 miles an hour, hitting cement, and it'll do some damage. I almost lost my left eye right here. And the basal ganglia controls four main things in your life that I come to find out: your voluntary movement, your cognitive capacity, your learning capabilities, and your memory. So the four main things.
What was that fourth one?
Yeah, the fourth one, right? The four main things that we use to function in life was hit for me. So I essentially had a new brain. Long story short, I had a new brain, and I had to adapt to my new brain because what was working before the accident was not working now. Gotcha. So I had to relearn how to learn, think, and memorize. So that's that you have to put in. Sometimes you just have to like put your head down and just put in the work. Sometimes you just have to do what needs to be done. You may not like it. You may not want to do it. You may not think you need to do it. But at the end of the day, it needs to get done. So I put my head down, and I got more studying done. I had to do some more research on the brain to see how my brain needed to adapt. And at the end of that semester, I finished that semester from failing to a 4.0 GPA at the end of that semester.
Dude,
It was one of those things where I met with my professor. I said, "Hey, this is what's happening. So I'm gonna work my tail off. I'm gonna get an A, bare minimum 95 in every one of your assignments from this point on. Will that get me an A in your class?" They said, "You can do that. You can get an A." So that's where I was able to finish and get that 4.0 at the end of the semester, because the construct and the idea of failure is probably the biggest thing that is hurting so many people. The world has shown us through Facebook and Instagram the highlight reels of everyone's success, so they never see the failures. I have failed. I think I had a Facebook post about this where I said I failed. I think 5 or 6 businesses. I've had interactions with the thoughts of suicide 2 different times. Like I said, I failed my JD. Like, there's so many things where I've failed, and I want people to understand. Look, you're supposed to fail. It's okay to fail. You grow out of failure because you learn lessons, you develop relationships, whatever it may be. You build your story around failure, because nobody wants someone who's always won, 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 won. They
Right?
want someone they can connect with. They want someone that they can identify with. So, and failures is something that everyone does and everyone has experience in. So I think the idea of failure, if there's one message that I would love to share with people, is just it's okay to fail. Just keep on going. Frank McKinney, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, he says, relentless forward motion. So you're going to fail, but keep going forward. You're going to fail. Just keep going forward.
Well, and that's one
Eventually
thing
you'll
that I
achieve what you
noticed.
want.
Yeah, for myself, I love that you just brought that up, because that's come into my mind several times. Is, you know, most of the time when we're failing, we don't recognize it, or when we're falling, is we're actually falling forward. It takes me back to trail running. I don't even know how many times I've fallen. And your toe catches a rock, and then you're like Supermaning down the trail, and you're crashing and burning, and then you're like, but wait, I'm 12 feet farther than I was when my toe hit the rock. And
Exactly.
and that happens a lot, and we just don't recognize it, because I feel like we are conditioned to take those mistakes or failures or whatever we want to call it and beat ourselves with them. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, all of these, you're talking about Facebook and social media, and I have such mixed feelings, but it can be so damaging. But I was thinking about movies, the things we see in movies, they're perfectly put together, but they did it by taking what? Take one, take two, take 56, and nobody's beating them up. They even have B-rolls, but we're so afraid to do that in our lives that I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine what our spaces would be like if we could just laugh at our mistakes and be like, "Oh, that was a doozy. Means nothing about me. Means I tried. It means I'm going to take this away from it and put it into the next." I don't want to even say a word. My next go at it, and see what happens till I have my movement.
I love that you bring that thought up, because that inspired a thought of me of a great distinction I did not bring up whenever I mentioned the 6 months of laying in bed from depression. Is you said, it's okay to fail. It's not who I am, right? Because that's the thought that I was doing. I was attaching myself to what I was doing. So if my thing that I was trying to accomplish failed, I myself was a failure. I was putting my identity in things. I was putting my identity in projects. I was putting my identity in accomplishments. And since my faith is important, where I found my balance is if I focus putting my identity in Christ, who I believe in, right? If I focus putting my identity in Him, He never fails me, right? And that's where I keep this doesn't have to work for everybody, but for me, this is where I have found my greatest emotional health, saying, hey, ultimately my identity is Him. I'm accomplishing these things, these projects. And if they don't work, that's not who I am, because ultimately my identity is in Christ.
I love that. And I love, seriously, I love that you just bring that up so confidently. That you're like, this is who I am. This is what makes me like be who I am. It's the energy that I connect with. It's the energy that I create with. I'm a full believer in that. I will be 100% transparent. And I've had situations where I've hesitated to say that, because because I don't know what circle I fit in. You know, I stepped back from the religion I grew up in, and I don't necessarily fit in this group over here and what they think about it. And I sometimes I get hesitant to talk about it. But the reality is that it's an amazing energy, and I appreciate your just like saying, boom, this is what it is, and for me, and it works for me. And for those of you out there who it does, like, super kudos to you. And for those of you who have a different maybe name or construct that you work that energy under, like, it's amazing. We've got it. I feel like we've got to be more comfortable being able to talk about and share those things, because it just it just adds to the magic when we can do that.
Absolutely. I think it is so important is take ownership of what you believe in.
Yes.
You know, if you be 100% owner, like if you believe in whatever deity it may be, just say, hey, I believe in that, and take ownership. Like, respect other people's thoughts and beliefs. That's huge, is to respect other people's thoughts and beliefs. But, like, just take ownership. It's okay. You know?
Yeah. Well, and even go beyond respect and get curious and ask them questions. Really get curious about what they believe in and how it informs their decisions and what they're doing, and how it informs how they recover from failure, or how they move forward in making those things. And when I really, really started to learn how to do that, life changed. Life changed. It just got more broad and amazing. And I'm able to see people different and experience them differently, because our differences are what make the beauty.
No, I feel like that whenever you're able to get to that point, life becomes not so much like a task. It doesn't become something that bears you down. Like, it becomes an adventure.
Right.
Like,
And
when
we
you
love
start to get those
adventure.
perspectives, like, it's so much fun. Oh gosh, it's so much fun.
So cool. So cool. Okay. So I know that, let's just kind of shift gears a little. Thank you for the stories that you shared. Thank you for sharing about your accident and how you I don't even want to say moved through the tough challenges in your world to be where you're at today. I feel like sometimes when we say overcome, we forget them and we just push them back there, and like it's something to be ashamed of, and it's not. It's what makes us who we are. So that I appreciate your shares. And so, where are you today? And what are you experimenting with? What are you attempting at and failing at? And how are you moving forward? What kinds of cool things are you creating?
Physically, I'm at Area Coffee in Mundelein, Illinois. It's a plug for my father-in-law. It's his coffee shop.
I was gonna say, I think I recognize that clock.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at physically today. But in terms of like projects and things I'm working on an incredible project with some amazing team members who just, you know how they say, Jim, make sure you're not the smartest person in the room.
Right.
It's not difficult for me to do, but I'll tell you what, our team is absolutely incredible. And what we're doing is, the one I can talk about, because there's another one that we have going on, but I'm not able to talk about that yet.
I can't wait to hear about that one.
So the one we're working on is it's a leadership conference for high school students. I'm focusing first in my home state of Oklahoma. And we are essentially evolutionizing how education is done. And we're doing it in such a way that we've been approached by Pearson Education, the worldwide conglomerate of education. And they said, if we pull off what we are doing, they're going to buy us out, because everyone in the education industry is trying to figure out how to teach and educate and reach the students of the Generation Z and Generation Alpha. Well, I have a little bit of an upper hand because I've been spending a lot of time with these two generations. They were born from 1997 onwards to now.
I was going to say, what are the years?
So Generation Z is 97 to 2012, depending on what study you look at, and Generation Alpha is 2013 until today, depending, of course, on what study you look at. Essentially what the Generation Z and Alpha is. And so I'm getting my doctorate in strategic leadership, focusing specifically on writing my thesis for Generation Z and Alpha. So how they operate, how they think, what they do, what they don't like, how they're comparing to other generations, what does that construct look like? So that's what we're focusing on. And we're developing this conference. Oh, it's so great, to where already we have...
Could you show us how excited you are again?
So we have the support of both sides of the aisles, because for me, having unity is absolutely crucial. Unity is so crucial, I believe. bring unity, or unity comes through understanding. For me, that's one of the great thoughts for me is. And so we have both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, state Republicans, state Democrats. We have senators and congressmen. We have all these individuals working together. We have business individuals. We have nonprofits. We have student leadership organizations. These organizations who are they're fighting for the same dollar. They're fighting for the same resources, right? We're coming alongside them, and they're joining us, right? Because we're saying, hey, we're not trying to step on your toes.
Right.
We want to come alongside you and meet the needs that you're not able to meet because you don't have enough time, you don't have enough resources. Allow us to come alongside of you to push forward what you're trying to do with these students to build the best students you possibly can. So essentially our ultimate goal for the Beginning of You conference, a high school development conference for leaders, is our goal is to retain Oklahoma's top 10 talent. That is our goal because I'm from Oklahoma, so I can say this. Oklahoma is not a sexy state, right? It's not sexy, right? It's not a Florida. It's not a New York. It's not a California. So our ability to attract.
They do have a cool song and play about them, though. I mean,
I love Oklahoma, where the wind comes.
Yeah, that
so
one.
Our ability to attract talent is not that great. But when you get here, right? When you get there to Oklahoma, you realize it's an incredible place to raise a family. It's an incredible place to do business. There's so many incredible things in Oklahoma, but you don't figure them out until you're there, right? So our goal, in order for us to become a top 10 state, is to retain our top 10 talent, right? So our leadership conference that we're developing, right, is we're having 3 keynote speakers. We're having workshops teaching the students financial literacy, where a vice president of a Fortune 1000 company is teaching that. We're about how to have a strong mental health as a high-performing leader. We're having these different workshops that are teaching these students soft skills, right, that these employers are wanting to have. And we're developing it such a way, don't want to tell you how we're doing it, but we're doing it in such a way that it's reaching these students how they want to be taught, how they want to learn. Not how we think they want to learn, not how we think they want to be taught, but how they have been telling us what they, because we have boots on the ground every single day, meeting with the students, meeting with the counselors, meeting with the teachers, the coaches, the administrators, saying, hey, what are your students demonstrating, or what are you as a student demonstrating? What do you want? How can we serve you? Right? Because this comes from my experience of building a tech startup where we got the valuation of $10 million of a patent technology that I was the founder of, is you have to allow the market to determine whether or not you're going to be successful. So understanding that concept, right? We're focusing on the market, saying, hey, what do you need? What do you want? How can we work with you? So we're working with multiple student leadership organizations, the Department of Commerce for Oklahoma, the Career Tech for Oklahoma, FCCLA, FFA, working with student councils. Like I said, multiple business leaders. We have just got a meeting right before this. I had a meeting with a representative, and we're working on getting in-person meetings with the governor and some very big entrepreneurs in Oklahoma, I would say, that have a bigger wallet than I do. Not tough to do, but so we're very excited because we're seeing such a unity of people coming together. Around the idea of the students need to be put first, right? Because right now in Oklahoma, there's a polarization in education. There are people that don't like how where it's going. There's people like, hey, let's do this. Like, it's just so polarized. It's absolutely impeccable how polarized it is. And this is the one thing that both sides are saying, hey, we can come together on this together. And that's what I love, is finding that common ground, because whenever I was interning at the White House, I was able to meet with a gentleman who actually, he was tapped by the White House on negotiations. So I learned negotiations from a guy who does it for, the White House, right? So I got a little bit of upper hand there. So I understand how to construct things to say, hey, this is what you want, this is what you want. And it's a win-win-win. You ever watch The Office? Right?
No.
Oh, I don't know if we can be friends, Jen. In The Office, there's a scene where Michael talks about the ultimate strategy of when compromising in negotiations is not a win-lose, not a lose-lose, not a win-win, but a win-win-win.
Yep.
That's right. So we're trying to do the Michael Scott way of structuring deals and negotiating as a win-win-win.
I love it. I love watching your excitement for this and the passion that just like boils up as you're talking about it. And I love also that I get the back end scene, and I can be like, hey dude, what's up? How's it going? And let's get on a call and chat. And so I love being able to support you that way. And hey, whatever that looks like, I got you. I got you. I'm
Thank you.
here
I
for
appreciate
you.
it. Same to you, Jim. We
Um,
appreciate that.
I just appreciate who you are and your passion for life. And it sounds like you have plenty of experiences in your young lived experience that have brought you to some great wisdom. And it's not just information, but it's stuff that you have and are continuing to learn how to apply in a
Mm.
way that works for you. And what I appreciate about that is is in that wisdom you're able to say, this is the way I did it, or this is the way
Mm.
I was shown I could do it. And you're still saying, but you got to find your way. You got to find the way that works
Absolutely.
for you. And um, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what's in store for Guru B and how this conference turns out, and like getting to celebrate wildly with you after. I mean, it's going to be a success, but even if it's not, we're going to
Yeah.
celebrate all the failures
Yeah,
along the
we
way.
are. If it fails, it fails. Next thing, you know.
Yeah, moving on. Well, and I think that's the piece right there. Is as you were talking earlier, we talk a lot about the power versus force and
Hmm.
um, David Hawkins' energy scale. And it starts at 20, and 20 is shame, right above death. And then
Hmm.
30 is guilt. And I think it's Brene Brown who gave the designation of the difference between shame and guilt. So when we're talking about failure, is that is that shame says, or guilt says, I made a mistake
Mm.
or I made a failure, and guilt says, I am the failure
Yeah.
or I
Mm.
am the mistake. And I love this designation that we're talking about here of like it's just something that you did. It means nothing
Yeah.
about you other than you gave it a go. And are you going to continue to give it a go?
Mm.
Um,
I love
I'm
that.
super excited to see how your goes go for you.
Thanks. And as you were saying that, a thought came to my mind because I love whenever I'm in thought-provoking conversations because I feel like new thoughts are connecting.
Right?
They're finally making that connection they've always wanted to connect. And I think you did that for me. I think a good distinction in someone who just feels like they're afraid of failure it kind of helps me understand this idea I want to tell real quick. So individuals like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or Jim Carrey, like they envisioned their success.
Yeah.
Like they knew that they were going to be successful. There's a story where Jim Carrey wrote a check for $10 million and he's going to cash it on this date. And he did for $10 million for Dumb and Dumber. Right? It was incredible. It's like he knew he was going to be successful. But for me, I'm like, man, it's just tough for me to think I'm going to be successful every single time because there's a reality of failure. So what the thought that came into mind is I accept I failed. So if I'm trying to accomplish this conference right now that we're discussing, I accept that I fail. I'm going to expect to succeed. So if I fail, I've already accepted that, but I'm expecting myself to succeed. So what we're doing there, right, is we're having the same vision of Jim Carrey, the same vision of Kobe Bryant, who became and done these amazing things. But we're saying, hey, if failure happens, that's fine. I already accepted that was going to happen, but I'm expecting that same success that we've seen the greats be able to accomplish. That was a cool
I love
thought you
it.
just put into my head.
I love it. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I feel like we could do every time we talk. I'm like, I feel like we could just talk
I
forever.
know we go forever.
However, we do try to keep this close to an hour, and we're about there. So,
Yeah.
what would be just part? I mean, that was a really great parting thought right there. So let's maybe parting thoughts or a couple of good books that you would encourage anyone
Yeah, I
listening.
think sometimes I think books are overrated. I mean, you can get the same inspiration from an incredible movie. You can watch 2 hours.
I say
So
go
I
have an
kind of
experience.
yeah, experience even better. So for me, the thought that's really been resonating with me for a couple of years now is the thought by President JFK's son, JFK Jr. And JFK Jr. spends his entire life amongst some affluent, powerful people in the world, billionaires, senators, princes, you name it, royalty. He said a lot of these people have done great things, but at the end of the day, they're not good people. He said, I would rather be a good person than try to do great things. So for me, what that's telling me is to be good because we can all aspire to do great things. But if we lose sight of being good in that process, was it really worth it? Did you make the biggest amount of impact, the best impact you could have done if you weren't being focused on being good? So as we're aspiring to do these great things in life, always remember to be good and aspire always.
Dude, that was a nice lead into that. I say, what does your hat say? I mean, I know what it says, but P.S. I still need one of those on my own head. Just saying.
Hey, that's another thing I'm working on. We're in the works.
Right?
In the works.
When Maggie comes, she can bring it. How about that?
That's right. That's right. She'll bring that.
Oh my gosh, Brandon, thank you for that. The reminder to do good and aspire always. That, you know, great things are just great things. It really doesn't mean anything about your character. And what character do we have behind the good things that we do? I appreciate you. I love you lots. And like I say, I'm in your corner and I can't wait to just
same here.
Be one of your biggest cheerleaders. I appreciate your support as well.
Thank you. All guys are wonderful. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you, my friend. Give Maggie a big hug for me, and we'll talk to you both soon. And for those of you who are listening, we will make sure that you know how to get a hold of Brandon if you've got questions, especially if you happen to be in Oklahoma. You're so lucky to be able to have this kind of conference coming to your high schools and education. And if you want to know more, we'll make sure you know how to get a hold of him, and just any other good things that he's got going on. For me and the good things we got going on, head over to therighteousrebels.com or the Righteous Rebels Facebook group, or you can just reach out. The next thing we got coming up is our summer solstice on the 21st, and then our women's river adventure, life and leadership skills, in one of the most epic ways that will change your life in ways you can't even imagine. Honestly, I will be doing it with you for the first time. We have world-class guides. It's going to be freaking amazing. So reach out. Let us share the good news with you. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and say, take whatever take it is, and know that you're successful because you're moving forward and you're continuing to move forward. And let's just end how we always will say, be bold, be brave, be a rebel. We'll see you soon.